and welcome to Living with Sunny, my podcast with Thomas Power. Our guest today, and I'm honored to have him as our first guest, is Vernon Sankey. He's a successful businessman, sits on many boards, including the board of Atos, and he's co-authored a couple of really nice books, very fine books. One of them is The Way, Finding Peace in Turbulent Times, which professors from Harvard have described as provocative and enlightening. He's written another book called The Stairway to Happiness, which shares a range of techniques and channels towards personal happiness. Vernon is a key figure in corporate well-being, which Thomas and I are very passionate about. And I'm excited to have Vernon here as our guest to share his wisdom on the subject.
Great. Well, lovely to be with you. I'm very flattered to be your first interviewee.
Welcome. So,
thank you,
Vernon. A couple of quick questions because I want to kind of delve into a little bit of your very early life. Tell me, where did you grow up?
Well, I was actually born in France, in Paris, because my father was the head of Unilever France at the time. And when I was sent off to boarding school at the age of 8 to a new country that I'd never been to before, with a language which was my second language, which is English. And there I was, little froggy, in an English environment where they talked about cricket. I'd never done cricket. They talked about TV programs I'd never heard of. And so I was the outsider, and I had to adapt very, very quickly to a totally different set of environment on my own at the age of 8, no communication with parents, in a totally different world. And so you learn very quickly from that.
And Vernon, in my life, there have been people who have highly influenced me in the way I live, my approach to life, the way I look at things. And I was wondering, have you had a person or more in your life that have had a similar influence on you?
I also had the very great luck of having 2 or 3 of the most brilliant tutors. And I still recall very vividly what they said, how they said it. They taught me to think. They taught me philosophy, because I did French and German at university, and I did French and German A-levels to get the scholarship. So the 2 teachers at Harrow were absolutely superb. And they really helped me to understand this totally different world. It wasn't about language. It was actually about philosophy, psychology, culture, very, very broad. They had a very broad understanding.
We all go through those experiences in life where we said, oh my God, I could have done something different. But you can't live in the past either. You can't punish yourself every time that you could have done something and was within your control. What would you tell, there are a lot of youngsters out there, the adults out there. What's the perspective that you will advocate, suggest of how do we deal with something like this? Where you say, oh my God, I could have done something different.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think, Sunny, you've come up with the answer. You see, one of the reasons for stress and mental illnesses is that we spend a huge amount of time on the past, right? And regretting or being anxious about, worried about what we did or didn't do. And it would be very easy to sort of drown in this sense of guilt. And let's face it, the way we're conditioned increases or has an enormous element of guilt in it. You mustn't do that, you're a naughty boy if you do that, all that. And the guilt gets repressed, which makes it even worse. So one of the causes of stress is this repressed guilt and this constant worry about the past. The past is actually all we have in order to try and anticipate and understand the future. And so we go from this extreme worry about what's happened or what I might have done, words like could, should, as soon as I hear those, I say, please never use those words, because they are expressions of of regret and resentment, which are not going to do any good. Look at what's happened in the past and learn from it, because they're wonderful lessons. The past is a magnificent way to learn, but then leave it at that. It's only a memory trail. It doesn't even exist. But what happens is we then use the past to predict the future. So we live in anticipation of the future. I have people who spend most of their time living in the future. Well, of course, they're living in illusion because the future doesn't exist either. The future fades away. The future is just some thought processes. But they spend so much time in the future that guess what? They never live now, right? Now is the only time that exists. But we have been conditioned to think when we look at a watch, an analog watch, we see the second hand, and we think that tiny thin sliver, that is now. And the thin sliver is what separates the future from the past, without realizing that the future and past actually don't exist. One's a memory trail, the other's a fading sense of ideas, and it's only now. And when you learn to live now and embrace the now, embrace what's happening right this minute, you realize there is nothing missing.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Vernon, I love this.
And well, this is what we teach. So, I mean, you know, what we teach in order to help people manage stress, it's not quick fixes. And I keep, you know, and I say that to the corporate. I say, if you want tricks and ideas and easy things, they won't work. I can help you even with some hypnotherapy. I can help you for a short term, for 2 to 3 months. But the only way to really understand how you manage stress is to fundamentally relook at the way we perceive the world.
Vernon, that's beautifully put. I hear the word stress management quite a bit. And for me, the whole stress management as a concept and the narrative out there doesn't really, you know, kind of sit well with me, because I look at stress as a kind of energy. And stress, a little bit of stress in your life is actually a good thing, because stress really awakens you up. It really focuses you. It gives you a target. It gives you an ability saying, I got to fix something, or something is bothersome, or something is not right. That can be in your personal life, or that can be in your professional life. You know, at during my growing years at Edifex, where I learned a lot as a founder and CEO, stress got the better of me many, many times. And I was very naive about those things and say, okay, how do I deal with stress? Do I get angry? Do I get frustrated? Do I feel down? And as I progressed in life, and especially when we come to the time when I started Round Glass, I said, it is about the way you live. Use stress as a creative energy, or take that energy of stress and do something creative with it. Because stress is because something is bothering you, something that you feel that you can't conquer or address or deal with. And how do you take that energy and pivot it into a creative, positive energy and saying, what can I do about it? What could I have done that won't let this get the better of me? And so for me, it is the way you live. Another thing at Round Glass that has really excited me is what you call empathetic leadership and empathetic connections. So this is not a leader showing empathetic leadership towards the team that they lead, but every associate in the company having empathetic conversations and connections with people they work with in their team, as well as associates from other teams. And when you bring the element of empathy, of understanding, of validation, it's somehow, you know, it's like stress becomes like ice, empathy becomes the warmth, and the ice melts. Empathy melts the ice, which is a hard thing of stress, and we find it highly effective. I find it even today, if I get irritated or frustrated with something, and suddenly I invoke empathy in that conversation, in my thinking, suddenly the hard ice of stress melts right in front of me and saying, this was so inconsequential. Why am I bothered about it? Why am I irritated about it? And somehow I find great solutions and great outcomes, whether by myself or with others.
Is absolutely critical, but you don't learn empathy. You can't teach somebody to be empathetic. I mean, that's ridiculous, right?
Yep.
But you can teach people to see the connectedness of everything to everything else. So they'll say, well, no, I am who I am, and I'm living in an inimical world where I've got to fight my own battles. And you say, yeah, but you're not, because you are imagining that you're an ego wrapped in skin. Whereas in fact, just imagine walking. You cannot describe walking without describing the environment in which it's taking place. You can't survive without the air, the food, which are all outside of you. We need social interactions. You can't do that on your own, right? So the idea that we're separate and different is absolutely nuts. It doesn't stand up.
Where has that separateness come from? What's driven that desire for separateness, or the ideal?
It is the conditioning and the thinking all the way through. But all the education is about you as an individual. You have to get your degree. You have to get your A levels. You have to, there's only one gold medal. It's all about self-aggrandizement. And if you look at, for example, what goes on the internet today, it's all about building separate images. I need to be like that. So why? But that's the image I want. Why? Because that's who I am. And you say, but that's not your identity, but it has become their identity. So everything we're doing is tending to put people towards that idea that I have to be better for myself.
So social media in itself is driving that separateness through those.
Well, social media is neutral, but the way it's being used is driving that. It's encouraging that. Because people then say, I want to look like that. The example I'd give you is this. So somebody comes into my office and says, Mr. Sankey, we've got this issue. And I say, oh, righto, great. What should I do? And I say, I haven't the slightest idea. and he looks a bit surprised. And I say, you look a bit surprised. Why's that? He said, well, you've got all these titles. You've been around a bit. Surely you've got a point of view. I say, well, not really, no. I look at him. I mean, after a while, he says, maybe I should set up a meeting with George and Fred. Maybe I should set up a conference call with the research laboratory. So, not a bad idea. Maybe I should put a plan together and come back to you with a plan with detailed deliverables. So, not a bad idea.
That's such a clever way of testing leadership, Vernon. I love that.
Me too. It's something I've always believed too, that leadership can only be tested practically. You can read all the books on leadership you want, and that's fine, and there's nothing wrong with it. But the real deal comes when you're actually doing the job and you're learning from it. You're making mistakes. You're learning from those mistakes, and you're calibrating and recalibrating. Thomas, have you found that to be true in your experience too?
Yeah, I have, Sonny. I have. But one of the things I've noticed throughout all my years of work, and like you, I've been working for a long, long time, 4 decades now, is that a good leader is not necessarily someone who does a lot, but it's someone who manages people, who get things done. I've always loved in 1 Minute Manager that a sign of a good leader is more things get done when you're out of the office than when you're in it. So learning that skill of leadership where people are more productive when you're not there because they value your leadership and they like your leadership and the quality of your leadership, that to me is the most important skill of all, to produce more when you're not there. That's special.
Yeah, it's like they say in Tao, a good leader does nothing, but leaves nothing undone.
Beautiful, Sonny. That's absolutely beautiful. And Vernon, when was the first time you heard the word well-being?
Oh, well, I think the word well-being has been around for some time, but it's shifted its meaning as we've got along. I mean, it didn't have the same level of importance that it has today, and incidentally, that it's going to have tomorrow. So you've got some very, very big movements that's happened in corporations. The whole of ESG, which is environment, social, and governance. I mean, I've got some stuff from Harvard, actually, that is trying to shift it to EESG, where the first E is about employee. Right? So now we're getting even further. So on environment, all corporations are having to develop plans, have them externally validated to show that they're reducing their carbon footprint quite significantly. And you have to demonstrate that now. It has to be proven from outside. And so it's becoming a race. That's what's going to actually make a big difference in the world. But because there's a rating for it and corporations are required to do it, they will drive it. And that's happening already. And on governance, you already have it. You know, there are ratings for the level of governance that exists. The social bit in the middle has been a little bit woolly. What do you mean?
I also believe that companies across the world, they have to be highly motivated in a purest forms to enable planetary well-being. Because at the end of the day, we are causing a lot of damage to the earth. We must leave this world a better place than we found it. We owe it to the next generation. Now, if every company in the world made a commitment, and that doesn't happen in 1 year, it'll happen over a period of time. They made a commitment that we will do and spend certain amount of our resources to ensure planetary well-being, carbon emissions, the packaging that we use that might be filling up our landfills and dumps, polluting our waters, polluting our soil, polluting our air. If we are creating collateral damage because of what do we do, then how about we also take responsibility that we will undo that collateral damage that we're doing, the unintended or intended, whether they know about it or they don't, whether they're related to them or not. But if they're creating an intended or unintended collateral damage to the environment, to the planet, then they also are conscientious about undoing that damage or taking steps to prevent or neutralize that damage. And sometimes it's not a one-to-one. You know, people have to fly to do meetings and saying, it's no, I'm going to stop flying. No, I'm causing certain carbon emissions. What can I do to negate it? And they could find the counterbalances that if something has to be done, because we just can't stop living, what can we do as a counterbalance to neutralize whatever damage we are causing?
The next very big requirement will be for corporations to demonstrate that they have very good well-being programs for their employees. And what will happen is not only will the investor community want it, and institutions want it, but employees themselves, new recruits will want it. And it's a battle for talent today. It's a battle for talent.
Do you think there'll be some kind of score? When you say a rating, do you think companies will have a well-being score of some sort?
No, I think they'll buy the services, but no, by rating, I mean, at the moment, for example, there are external companies like EcoVadis who will give you a rating on your environmental footprint, right? So you have to go to them and they'll say, what do you do on this? You give them all the data and they say, oh, that gives you a B- or an A+ or whatever, right? Similarly with governance, you get a rating from the agencies that says they have so many women on the board, they have so many meetings, the minutes are done this way, so on. And I think you'll have the same thing with well-being, in that you'll have a form of index that will rate, and companies say, well, what do you provide in terms of holistic well-being facilities and services for your employees? And we're going towards that direction.
This is the first holistic well-being podcast we've run, Vernon, Sonny and I, and it's just been such an honor to listen to you. You want to do a final close on this first edition?
Well, thank you, Thomas. You know, I felt in a way compelled that when I look at what's happening around the world, I see a lot of things I don't like. When I see, and COVID has been a game changer, which has actually accentuated, accelerated, and it's like the emperor has no clothes. It has brought out in the open what a lot of us knew, what I've been thinking about, and what I've been observing in the US, in India, other parts of the world. And so when I look at how people are living today, I see I see a lot of struggles, unnecessary struggles. I see mental fatigue. I see chase. I see reactiveness. I don't see a sense of serenity, calmness, tranquility, harmony. And I'll be sitting in a restaurant and I'll be observing people and I'll say, something is not, these are things I'm finding wrong. I'll sit in a park and look at people and see what I'm finding right and wrong. It's not there's not goodness in the world, there's plenty of goodness in the world, but the trend is not right. We are trending to fall off a cliff. I see social media, I see the way we live, the way corporates work. There's so much improvement that needs to be done and can be done, that our lives can be that much better just because of that. And I really want, Thomas, that people, it's important for them to think, but not overthink.
Yes.
It's okay for them to be influenced, but not unnecessarily influenced. I want them
Yes.
to discover and rediscover themselves.
Yes.
And look at all the information, all the things that you hear, and then incorporate be able to filter that, because there's a lot of noise in the world through either social media or whatever you hear. The ability to filter that so that you can continuously keep discovering and rediscovering and unleashing your potential and unleashing the inherent intelligence you have in yourself and feel complete within yourself, I think is imperative, is the need of the times, is the need for every person in this sea of what we call humanity.